Story 1. It was a dark and stormy night. The rain was coming down in sheets, and the wind was howling like a pack of wolves. The only thing that kept me company was the sound of my car's engine as I drove down the deserted road. I had heard the rumors about this road, about how it was haunted by the ghost of a woman who had died in a car accident years ago. They said that she would appear to anyone who drove down this road on a stormy night, asking for a ride. And if you refused her, she would curse you. I tried to brush off these rumors as I drove, but I couldn't help feeling a sense of unease. And then, out of nowhere, I saw her. A woman in a long, flowing dress, standing by the side of the road, soaking wet from the rain. I slowed down, feeling a mix of fear and pity. I didn't want to pick her up, but I couldn't just leave her there in the rain. So I rolled down my window and asked if she needed a ride. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me with eyes that seemed to pierce my soul. And then, in a voice that sent shivers down my spine, she spoke. "I need to get home," she said. "Will you take me there?" I hesitated for a moment, but then I nodded. She got into the car, and I could feel her cold, wet dress pressing against my arm. The silence was thick and heavy as we drove, and I could feel her eyes on me the entire time. And then, just as we were getting close to her supposed home, she spoke again. "This isn't where I live," she said. "Take me to the cemetery." My heart pounded in my chest. I knew then that she wasn't just a woman in need of a ride. She was the ghost that haunted this road, and I had made a grave mistake by picking her up. I tried to refuse, but she grew more insistent. And then, as we pulled into the cemetery, she vanished. I was left alone in the car, shaking with fear. And that's when I heard it. The sound of thunder, so loud and deafening that it shook the car. And then, in the flash of lightning, I saw her again, standing in front of me, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. She spoke one final time, her voice echoing in my mind. "You should have left me in the rain." And then she was gone, leaving me alone in the cemetery with nothing but the sound of the driving thunder. Story 2. It was late at night, and Emily was driving home from her friend's house. The road was long and deserted, with nothing but the sound of the rain tapping against the car's roof to keep her company. Emily had driven this route many times before, but something felt different tonight. As she turned a bend, her headlights caught a figure standing in the middle of the road. Emily slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. She hit the figure with a sickening thud. Emily's heart raced as she stepped out of the car. The rain was coming down in sheets now, and the figure lay motionless on the road. Emily could feel the panic rising within her. What had she hit? Was the person alive? That's when she heard the voice. "Stay inside the car," it whispered. "Stay inside the car." Emily looked around but saw no one. The voice seemed to be coming from inside her head. She shook her head, thinking that she was just imagining things, and started to walk towards the figure on the ground. But the voice grew louder. "Stay inside the car. Stay inside the car." Emily hesitated for a moment, but then the fear took hold. She ran back to her car, slamming the door shut behind her. And then she saw it. The figure was standing up, slowly and steadily. It turned to face Emily, and she saw its eyes glowing in the darkness. Emily realized that it wasn't human at all. It was some kind of monster. She tried to start the car, but the engine wouldn't turn over. The monster was getting closer and closer, and Emily could hear its breath on the windows. The voice came again. "Stay inside the car. Don't look outside." Emily followed the voice's instructions and closed her eyes. She didn't dare to look outside, too afraid of what she might see. She could hear the monster scratching at the windows, trying to get in. And then, Just as suddenly as it had appeared, the monster was gone. Emily opened her eyes to find herself alone in the car. The rain had stopped, and the night was silent. Emily started the engine and drove away as fast as she could. She never spoke of what had happened that night, but the memory haunted her for years to come. From that day on, Emily always listened to the voice inside her head. She knew that it had saved her life that night, and she was determined never to ignore it again. Story 3. It was a dark and stormy night when Sarah's car broke down on a deserted road in the middle of nowhere. She tried to start the engine, but it wouldn't turn over. Sarah cursed under her breath and realized that she was stranded. As she sat there in the dark, a feeling of dread began to creep over her. She had heard stories of people being stranded on this road before, and some of them had never been seen again. Sarah tried to push these thoughts out of her mind and focused on finding a way out of this mess. Suddenly, Sarah heard a strange noise coming from the darkness. It sounded like footsteps, but they were slow and deliberate, as if someone or something was stalking her. Sarah's heart raced as she looked around, but she couldn't see anything in the darkness. She tried to start the car again, but it wouldn't budge. And then, she heard a tapping sound on the window. Sarah froze in terror, afraid to move or even breathe. The tapping continued, growing louder and more insistent. Just when Sarah thought that she couldn't take it anymore, the tapping stopped. She took a deep breath, hoping that it was over, but then she heard a voice. It was soft and whispery, almost like a child's voice, but it was coming from outside the car. "Don't you just hate car trouble?" the voice said. Sarah's blood ran cold. She knew that there was no one around, yet she had heard the voice clear as day. She tried to start the car again, but it still wouldn't turn over. The tapping started again, and this time it was accompanied by scratching sounds. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she realized that something was trying to get into the car. She locked the doors, but it didn't seem to matter. The scratching grew louder and more frenzied. And then, all of a sudden, it stopped. The scratching, the tapping, the footsteps, all of it. Sarah breathed a sigh of relief, thinking that she was safe, but then she heard a soft chuckle. The voice whispered again, "Don't you just hate car trouble?" Sarah's eyes widened as she realized that the voice was coming from inside the car. She turned around to face the back seat, and there it was. A small, childlike creature with glowing eyes and a wicked grin. Its hands were covered in blood, and it was holding a knife. Sarah screamed and tried to open the car door, but it was locked from the outside. The creature just chuckled and continued to whisper in her ear, "Don't you just hate car trouble?" And then, Sarah woke up. It was just a nightmare, she realized, but it felt so real. She looked around, grateful that she was safe in her own bed. But then she saw something that made her blood run cold. On her bedside table, there was a small, childlike handprint, still wet with blood. Story 4. It was a bright and sunny day when Julia decided to buy a used car. She had been saving up for months and finally had enough to get a decent vehicle. She searched online and found a car that looked perfect for her needs. It was a 2012 Toyota Camry with low mileage and a reasonable price. Julia called the seller, and they agreed to meet at a nearby parking lot to take a look at the car. When Julia arrived at the parking lot, the seller was already waiting for her. He was a middle-aged man with a friendly smile, and he seemed eager to sell the car. Julia took a closer look at the vehicle, and everything seemed to be in order. She took it for a test drive, and it ran smoothly. Feeling satisfied, Julia decided to buy the car. She paid the seller and drove off, feeling excited about her new purchase. But soon, she would realize that buying the car was the biggest mistake of her life. On the first night of owning the car, Julia had a strange dream. She dreamt that she was driving down a dark and deserted road, with no other cars in sight. Suddenly, the car's headlights went out, and the engine stalled. Julia tried to start the car again, but it wouldn't turn over. She was stranded in the middle of nowhere, and a feeling of dread crept over her. Just then, Julia heard a faint whispering sound coming from outside the car. It sounded like someone was calling her name, but she couldn't see anyone in the darkness. The whispering grew louder and more insistent, and Julia felt a chill run down her spine. She tried to open the car door, but it was stuck. And then, she saw something moving in the shadows. It was a figure, shrouded in darkness, with glowing red eyes. Julia tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure moved closer and closer, and Julia could see that it was a man, or at least it used to be. His skin was rotting, and his eyes were sunken in. He reached out a bony hand towards Julia, and she knew that she was going to die. Suddenly, Julia woke up, sweating and panting. She shook her head, trying to get rid of the dream, but it felt too real. She looked around, relieved to see that she was safe in her own bed. But then, she noticed something strange. The keys to the car were on her bedside table, even though she had left them in the ignition before going to sleep. The next day, Julia went for a drive in her new car. She was still feeling uneasy from the nightmare, but she tried to brush it off. But then, she noticed that something was wrong with the car. It started to make strange noises, and the steering wheel felt loose. Julia tried to ignore it, but the problems only got worse. As she was driving down the highway, the car suddenly veered off the road and into a ditch. Julia was thrown from the car, and she hit her head on a rock. When she woke up, she was lying on the ground, with blood running down her face. The car was a wreck, with smoke billowing from the engine. Julia tried to call for help, but her phone was dead. She stumbled towards the road, hoping that someone would come by and help her. But as she looked back at the car, she saw something that made her heart skip a beat. The figure from her dream was standing next to the car, with a sinister grin on his face. Sarah's heart raced as she realized that the creature from her nightmare was now standing before her in the flesh. She tried to run, but her legs felt like lead. The figure slowly approached her, its eyes glowing in the darkness. "Did you have a good dream, Sarah?" it asked in a whispery voice. "I hope you enjoyed it. But now it's time to wake up." The creature lunged at her, and Sarah screamed. She tried to fight it off, but it was too strong. Its hands were cold and clammy, and it smelled of decay. Sarah's mind raced as she realized that this was no ordinary creature. It was something far more sinister. Just when Sarah thought it was all over, the creature stopped. It stepped back and looked at her, almost as if it was studying her. And then, it smiled. "I'll let you go this time, Sarah," it said. "But remember, you can't escape me forever. I'll always be watching you." And with that, it vanished into thin air. Sarah collapsed on the ground, gasping for breath. She knew that she had narrowly escaped with her life, but she also knew that the creature would be back. Over the next few days, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She would see glimpses of the creature out of the corner of her eye, and she would hear its whispery voice in her ear. One night, Sarah was lying in bed, trying to sleep. She closed her eyes and tried to relax, but she felt a cold breeze on her face. When she opened her eyes, the creature was standing at the foot of her bed, its eyes glowing in the darkness. "Did you think you could escape me, Sarah?" it asked. "I told you, I'll always be watching you." Sarah tried to scream, but no sound came out. She tried to run, but her legs wouldn't move. The creature slowly approached her, its grin widening. And then, Sarah woke up. It was just another nightmare, she realized. But as she looked around her room, she saw that the creature was still there. It was standing in the corner, watching her with its glowing eyes. Sarah knew that she was trapped, that she would never escape the creature's grasp. She closed her eyes and prayed for it to be over, but she knew that it never would be. The creature would haunt her for the rest of her days, a constant reminder of the horrors that lurk just beyond the edge of reality. Lurk just beyond the edge of reality. Lurk just beyond the